All right, and then I'll begin the recording and we can get going. I guess the other thing I'm going to do is, Sarah, I'm going to give you the ability to allow people into the meeting so that if you see participants wait in the waiting room, you can admit them.
Sure.
Okay. And I'll try to pay attention to that as well so that we get everybody in. All right. So we'll call to order the Board of Education meeting of April 20th, 2021. This meeting is being recorded, and I will ask that all participants mute themselves to prevent meeting interference. Anybody who wants to participate during public participation and is on the phone can use *6 to unmute. I also ask that everyone wait to be recognized by the chair before speaking so that people listening by phone are able to identify the person who is talking. This meeting is being held virtually with access by phone or streaming as is indicated on the agenda. And we'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance. If I can pull up a flag. All right. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, thank you. And then following that, I'll ask Mr. D'Elia if he would read our commitment to community statement.
As citizens of our community, we will conduct ourselves in accordance with Newtown's core character attributes as displayed in our character tree. We will be responsible for our actions and show respect for each other. We will interact peacefully, productively, and politely. We will be trustworthy and honest and show compassion toward others. Newtown's continued success is contingent upon our ability to persevere, to follow through with our commitments, and to stay focused on the greater good.
Thank you. And then following that, we will move on to our consent agenda, and I'll entertain a motion on that.
I move that the Board of Education approve the consent agenda, which includes the minutes of April 6, 2021, the donation to Ollie School, and the correspondence report.
Second.
Okay, so Mr. D'Elia makes the motion, Ms. Harriman-Stite seconds the motion. Is there anything that needs to be removed for further discussion? All right, all those in favor? Aye. All right, that's unanimous, being the four of us. The four of us, Ms. Zukowski, myself, Mr. D'Elia, Ms. Harriman-Stite. And that'll bring us to public participation. So don't see too many people on the phone, but if there's anybody on the phone who would like to unmute using *6 and address the board regarding any items on the agenda, we just ask that you keep your comments to under 3 minutes and tell us your name and address for the record. Is there anybody who would like to address the board at this time? All right, I'm sensing none, so I will close out public participation and start with reports with the chair report. So we have been invited to attend the Charter Revision Commission's meetings to provide the Board of Ed perspective on the charter requests or the changes that we requested. I have told them that we will attend on May 19th based on the feedback from board members. So put that on your calendar if you'd like to be part of that. I've provided our legal counsel our charter recommendations and asked them to provide feedback on 3 of the items that we had. So that was defining the fiscal authority, which did not make it into the charge to the commission. Clarifying the definition of town department in relation to Board of Education in the charter. That is part of the recommendation or part of the charge to the commission. And then clarifying whether the first selectman's ex officio status applies to the Board of Education. So I'm hoping for some feedback from our legal counsel on that, and we can include that in our comments on May 19th. Additionally, finally, the budget referendum will take place next Tuesday, and I know it's been very quiet, especially with last week being spring break. It's late. The referendum is late in the month this year, but I'm hoping that everybody remembers to vote. And looking forward to seeing the results on that. And so with that, I will conclude my report. I don't know if there are any questions or comments from board members at this point. All right, sensing none, I will turn it over to Dr. Rodrigue for the superintendent's report.
Thank you, Dr. Koo. My report's very brief this evening. We're all back from our April break, and I'm hoping everyone is rejuvenated, all of our staff and leaders. And again, we're moving closer to the end of the year. Our activities, spring sports, as I know you hear from the students, is in full swing. And again, student assessments coming up as well. And I know there's no accountability measures from the state. I sent you an email on that in one of my Sunday highlights, but truly the data will still be important to us. We're also looking at sending out a bullying survey out to the elementary level students and families, just as we did at our secondary level. And the format is actually going to be reviewed tomorrow at our administrators meeting. And then we're hoping to use that data from all of the surveys, K-12, to plan much of our social emotional learning activities for next year. Once we have all of that data from K-12, we'll also share that with you in an upcoming board meeting. So again, very brief, as I said, happy spring, everyone. And we're looking to a positive end to the year.
Great, thank you, Dr. Rodrigue. Are there any questions or comments? All right, we're breezing right through these. That'll bring us to our, do we have, committee reports, yes, okay. Were there any committee meetings or liaison activities between last meeting and now? Anybody wants to report on? Nope. Okay. I know the joint work group on the non-lapsing account, I think was reported on at our last meeting. I looked at some of the questions that were generated at that last meeting, and just a comment based on those questions that I saw. I'm wondering, is it possible to propose using the policies that we have developed as a Board of Education, the policies and the regulation as a starting point for discussions, since the Board of Education does have a position, Board of Education voted on these. We spent a lot of time and spent resources in generating those policies and regulations. And I'm just wondering if that could be a starting point for the discussions. Yes, Ms. Zukowski.
Both policies and the administrative regulation were sent out after the first meeting of the joint non-lapsing account work group. The two policies were sent to the lawyers. There seems to be a reluctance in terms of acknowledging the administrative regulation. I'm still pushing on that a little bit, and we'll ask the lawyers, and time will tell where the starting point will actually be in terms of the actual work.
Okay, Ms. Liveline?
Yeah, Michelle, I had a question for you. I know that we're getting feedback from legal counsel on both sides. I also wondered if CABE might have some information that they could add with regard to policies that other towns have put forward, or what the way it's organized. I don't know. I was just thinking that we haven't a subscription or
Yeah,
trying to think of what the word is, but
we pay our
um,
dues.
yes, exactly. So I just didn't know if this would be if they could be helpful in some way in looking at how we're doing it, and giving some input into how other towns are doing it, and sort of if both boards could hear that, or if this committee could hear that, if that might be beneficial.
Yeah, I can ask that question. I do think there has been some work done by CAVE
Right,
staff
right.
doing that already.
Yep.
I know there are board chairs who have had that discussion as well, so I'll see if I can dig up some of that information.
Thanks. I appreciate that.
And before your next meeting is May 3rd, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Thank you.
Ms. Zukowski?
In 2014, there had been some research in terms of what other towns were doing at the time, and the subcommittee or the work group has all of that research too. I think it was Pat Lodra who introduced it to the Board of Finance at the time. But I agree with Ms. Leidline that it would be very nice to get updated information.
Okay, I'll see what I can find. I'll ask. All right, any other? Yes, Ms. Harriman Stites?
Yeah, another resource that we sometimes use, and I hate to put you on the spot, Dr. Rodrigue, is that she goes to her colleagues as well. And we get a lot of really timely feedback as to what other districts are doing from her superintendent colleagues. So that can be helpful perhaps as well.
Yes, I actually have a meeting with them on Thursday, a virtual meeting, so I can put that on the agenda.
That's great, thank you. But going back to the original question, I mean, we do have a position that I believe the board unanimously agreed upon, the policy. I can't recall for sure, but at least by a majority vote, the board has a position on how we think things should be handled. So I would hope that that would be a good starting point for discussions. Anyway, I will leave it there. And I don't think there were any other liaison activities or reports. Am I right? Okay, so we will move on to our student representative reports, and I will turn it over to Mr. Durfee. And do we have Ms. Clore here? I thought I saw her. Yeah. Yes. Okay, great.
Good evening, everyone. So it's a very exciting time for students, teachers, all of you guys as well, I'm sure. I believe there's less than 40 days of school left, which is a very bittersweet moment for us seniors as we leave for our colleges and our future careers. Many seniors are now committing to their colleges, and there's a lot of excitement surrounding that in the school. And another big focus at this time of the year is that many students are now studying for AP exams, which will be held throughout May. And so classes are beginning to be geared towards preparing for those tests. And that's all I have for today. We're all looking forward to a really great end of the year.
All right, fantastic. Ms. Clore.
So I will continue. Good evening, members of the Board of Ed and Superintendent Dr. Rodrigue. So last week was spring break, so there's not a whole lot of new information to report on this week because we weren't in school, but I can say it was very nice not to have a single Google Classroom notification that whole week. Probably was a good part, but anyway, so yes, spring sports are in full swing. Boys and girls lacrosse, boys and girls tennis, boys and girls track, boys volleyball, baseball, softball, and boys and girls golf. And they all had a couple of games and contests over spring break, so they were all very active. If anyone follows the Twitter page, you can see all the updates from all the games. But yeah, so they have all kicked in full swing, and the fan rule still remains the same. When I originally told you that I know they said it might change, but for now it's still 2 parents at each game. This week at the high school is Hope Week. So throughout the week, Hope Squad members, which is a new group this year at the high school, they're spreading messages of hope and kindness. So this morning, there was a huge whiteboard in the lobby that had a lot of colorful Post-it notes with lifesavers attached that had positive messages. And I think you could take one and then read the message. And I thought it was a great way to start off the day and start off the morning. So kudos to them, and we'll see what tomorrow has. April is also Autism Awareness Month. So the National Honor Society at the high school and Families United in Newtown are hosting a movie event this Sunday at Edmonton Hall at 1 o'clock. They're showing the 2019 version of The Lion King. And it's just to promote autism awareness. And all you have to do to sign up is tickets just have to be ordered on the Families United Newtown website or Facebook page. And I believe it's a $5 donation. So that's coming up this Sunday. Additionally, the senior capstone practice presentations have started this week. They started yesterday. I think it's just this week and next week, and then the practice will be over and we'll kick into fixing for our final presentation. This is a bit of a modified schedule because the capstone teachers wanted to make sure that all of the seniors finish their presentations before June, so that we can, I guess, enjoy the end of the year, or if you need the extra time at the end, you'll have it, which I think is pretty smart. And I know mine's at the end of May, and if any of the seniors approve to being recorded, their presentation will be recorded so that they can have it, and they can have people look at it or watch it in the future because it'll be recorded. So I know I already watched, I think, like 6 from December because I was trying to make my presentation better because I had my practice today. So pretty exciting. And then as Rochelle mentioned, College Decision Day is 10 days away, May 1st. So I always joke with my mom that it seems like every hour or so another student committed to school. A week and a half ago, I committed to the Honors College at Clemson, so I'm really excited, and I love seeing where all my friends are going. I don't know why, but I just really like seeing where everyone commits. And then, oh yes, on April 1st, the vaccine came available to 16-year-olds and up. So I know of a lot of my friends and fellow classmates at the high school have scheduled their first appointment, if not already gotten it, or scheduled it for somewhere near in the future. So I know that's pretty exciting. It's almost become like in my chemistry class, we were all competing to see whose appointment was the soonest. So that was pretty fun. And then my last piece is just that Rochelle and I have talked about the end of the year activities for seniors, but if anyone was curious, the junior event actually got changed to junior prom. So they will be having a junior prom. I'm assuming it'll be like our senior one, but I'll have more details to follow as it gets closer to the event. And that concludes my report for this week.
Great, thank you. And congratulations.
Thank you.
So are there any other board member questions on, yes, Ms. Zukowski?
2 questions, very quick. I don't know if John Boros is here, but the question he always asks about this time when it's just before the capstones is if we can get, the board members can be sent a list of all of the capstone presentations. Just a reminder. The other question is, how are the students reacting to the chance to get the vaccine? Is it something that seems to be really popular across the board for the 16 to 19-year-olds, or are you hearing some amount of hesitancy? What's the reactions? I was actually
very surprised because I haven't heard of many students at all being very hesitant. I think it was a very positive. Like as soon as April 1st, I had a free and I was in Old Calf, and a bunch of students were on their laptops trying to book through like Walgreens or CVS. So I think it's actually had a very positive effect on the students. And from what I've heard, everyone has been really excited about getting it. Go ahead.
Same. Yeah. A lot of my friends have gotten their first shots already. So.
I had my first one last Monday.
Excellent, thank you.
Very good. And then I don't know, Dr. Longabuco, is it possible to get a list of capstone projects that we could
Yes.
possibly drop in on?
Absolutely. They are finishing signing up depending on who their teacher is now. So by the end of this week, once practice presentations are done, we should have a final schedule. There's some afternoon, evening spots, and then there's a whole bunch during the day. So we'll share that with you as soon as we have it.
Okay, great. Thank you. Any other questions? Yes, Ms. Lideline.
So I had a question about AP classes, and I know that there's been a lot of discussion and changes in testing and all that with regard to schools. I was just curious as to if we have seen any sort of changes with the number of students who are taking AP classes, the number of schools who are accepting scores for AP classes. I just wondered where that was in the realm of things.
Let's see, Dr. Longabuco, can you answer?
Sure. So as far as students enrolled in AP classes, we have an equal amount that we typically have. We didn't see any change from last year to this year, and we actually have the enrollment for next year already done and don't see a huge change in that based on student requests for next year. There are some changes in exams and how you can take the exams this year. We decided at the high school that we think it's important that our students take the exams in our school building. And I would say about 90% or maybe even 95% are going to be the written version. We do have 2 or 3 content areas that are taking the digital version, and there's some pros and cons to kind of deciding that. And a lot of conversations with students and teachers to decide which model they'll be taking. There's actually 3 administration dates, and we will be using predominantly the first one with the exception of 2 exams and some special circumstances that are using the second administration. But colleges are accepting the credits and the exams at the same rate. And we have a tremendous amount of our students who are deciding to take them. We obviously don't require them to take the exam just because they're in the course, but we do have a pretty high volume that are taking it. So we're looking forward to seeing the results. I know our teachers felt a little pressure, as did the students this year, with the changing of models throughout the year to get through the content in enough time. And so like Rochelle said, I think a lot of our AP teachers have shifted to preparing for the test strategies and, thought processes and models and test taking procedures for the next kind of 2.5 weeks.
Okay. Can I ask a follow-up question?
Yes.
Just want to make sure that there's definitely accommodations that are being made for students who choose to be remote learners.
So there are actually at the high school in all of the tests that we have given, whether PSAT, SAT, or upcoming NGSS and AP tests, we've always offered for our cohort D students to come into the building should they want to. And actually we have a tremendous amount who do come into the building and take it. There are remote options. However, they are difficult and not a version that students have ultimately practiced, but there are options available both for NGSS and for the AP exam should students need them. There's also makeup dates. What we've done that has been tremendously successful is put cohort D students with other cohort D students. So that classroom is all students who have only been at home so that they're not around other in-person learners when they come in to take the test.
Thank you so much.
Sure.
All right. Any other questions or comments before we move on? All right, so thank you. Thank you, Jillian and Rochelle, appreciate it. And we're looking forward to these last couple months, seeing where things end up. All right, so that'll bring us to our financial report for the month. And I will entertain a motion on that.
I move that the Board of Education approve the financial report for the month ending March 31st, 2021.
Second.
All right, so Mr. D'Elia makes the motion and Ms. Harriman Stites seconds the motion. And I will ask Ms. Vadas if she can give us a summary of what's going on.
Yes, I can. Good evening, everybody. Just a quick update. I wanted to just mention that since we didn't get together last week with our subcommittee, we had our purchasing director assemble an RFP for suppliers to bid on the propane contract. And this is very similar to the contract that was sent out in April 2019. So we advertised on March 26th. It was advertised in Newtown B, the Connecticut DAS portal, and the town website. We also sent the RFP to 5 vendors, the same as the last time. It was Hocon, East River, Mitchell, Suburban, and AmeriGas. Between April 15th and April 21st, tomorrow, bidders have the opportunity to ask some questions, and we will answer those questions. And this Friday, the bids are due back to central office by 2 o'clock. So we will have a bid opening. We hope to compile all the information and present something to the board, hopefully in the first May meeting, if not perhaps the second. So I just want to let you know about that. Also, in propane news, this is kind of exciting. The excise tax credit opened up again. So that is a program that's always been, it would open and close, or we'd miss the deadline. So the last time we applied was actually in 2019, and we submitted 2017 data, and we were able to receive that credit. So just this past January, I had Kristen apply for 3 years, 2018, 19, and 20. Just today, we received a check for the 2018 credit, and that was $38,000. So I'm pretty hopeful that we will receive the 2019 and the 2020. So that's great. The credit is for 50 cents per gallon. So that reduces our cost to just about 60 cents currently per gallon of propane. So I thought that was a good amount of money. In 2019, we're looking for almost $70,000 in credit. And then in 2020, it'll be about $44,000. So any questions about that? Kind of exciting in my world, because we haven't seen that program open up for a while. And one other quick thing to mention, I did reach out to Peter Prouda. He's our enrollment specialist, and he did update the report for me. We actually went back and forth a little bit today, and he's going to change a few numbers and update it a little bit more, but we will use his report most likely for the projections for the next budget round in the 22-23 school year. So I have that report coming in, and that's about all that's going on. Any questions about that before I jump into the financials?
Doesn't look like it.
Okay. All right. Let's see. Just gonna put up a presentation. So you do have the report. I did pack a lot of information in the report. So again, I'll try to give this like the 30,000 foot view of the financials for March. Oops, geez. Okay, can everybody see the presentation?
Yes.
That's okay, perfect. Okay, so this is our 9th financial update for the year, and this ends our 3rd quarter. This report includes a full year-to-date expenditures through March 31st. The majority of our accounts are now encumbered, and for those that are not encumbered, I have included a column for the anticipated obligations. Our year-to-date expenses are just under $55 million, and we have about $21 million encumbered, with a balance of about $3 million captured in these unanticipated obligations column. For the month of March, the Board of Ed spent approximately $7.9 million. $2 million went to our medical self-insurance fund, and that was our final payment. $4.1 million on salaries and $1.8 million on all other objects. All of these expenditures and encumbrances are within normal range for this time of year. So our overall year-end projection continues to show a negative balance. However, it has improved by $74,294 over the prior period, bringing our new year-end projection to negative $13,000. The major contributors of this change can be found in the salary account with a positive change of $133,000. And benefits, purchase properties, services, and supplies also contributed to this change, adding roughly $90,000. The offsets to these additions can be found in professional services and other purchase services, as their balance is decreased by approximately $250,000. So now I'll just take you into some of the major account movers for the month. So the salary account, there was a lot of movement going on here this month, and most of it was in the certified salaries. We had anticipated hiring 3 temporary teaching positions that have now been removed, as we don't anticipate filling these positions before year end. We also made an adjustment to our homebound tutors and certified subs for special education, basing this decision on the anticipated needs for the balance of the year. This adjustment released $34,000 in obligations, adding to our certified salary balance. And we made some adjustments to our daily sub encumbrances, as there's been a lot of movement in the teaching salary accounts. And this is due to teachers on leave and other instances like that. These changes released approximately $70,000 in both encumbrances and anticipated obligations. So all of these changes added $133,422 to our salary accounts, bringing our new balance to a negative $109,712. So this is an area that we've been paying a lot of attention to. And this is the other purchase services, and they contain most of what I call our wild card accounts, such as the lunch program, special education, tuition, and transportation. But so far, it appears that we have some good estimates in place for the lunch program and transportation, as they have not changed much over the last few months. The lunch program is still estimated to lose about $320,000, while transportation balance is now just over $380,000. And that was due to a variety of credits from the current and prior year as well. And also for local and out-of-district runs that haven't taken place all year. We continue to monitor our special education tuition, as changes in this area can produce very large swings. And if you recall from my last report, I mentioned that we would be reconciling and adjusting our tuition account, which we did. And it now includes the following. We have 1 additional outplacement. We adjusted our encumbrances for educational portion of tuition, and we also adjusted summer school costs. So all of these changes have accounted for an additional $160,000, bringing the out-of-district tuition account to a negative balance of just over $57,000. And in this line item for tuition, you only see a negative of $9,800, and that's because it is offset by the regular education magnet school tuition. So we do have a positive balance in that account, so that offsets our negative balance in the out-of-district tuition for special ed. So these adjustments, as well as the transfers out, have now brought the balance in other purchase services from $235,575 to $30,935. So the overall change in our supply account was not significant this month, but I just wanted to mention that we have adjusted our balances in plant supplies, and we released an additional $18,000. However, we are still anticipating a negative balance in plant supplies of $176,000, but keeping in mind that was mostly due to all of the COVID expenses that we incurred during this year. So quickly, I just wanted to provide an excess grant cost update. And this is in anticipation of a possible change in our expected revenue. Back in February, the state calculated our reimbursement rate to be 83.48%. And this is the first time we've ever seen it this high, as it usually fluctuates between 70 and 75%. The state, I believe maybe just today, has published the numbers. I haven't seen them yet. But this data here shows how much we will lose in revenue based on a percentage that comes in. So the diagram shows that if the grant comes in at 82%, we will lose $27,000 in revenue. If it comes in at 75%, we could lose over $150,000 in revenue. So I just wanted to point that out, that even though it's a small percentage, we could see some large changes. And I'll have that reported. Well, it will definitely be in my report for next month. And those changes will be reflected in our May deposit. And food service update. I know I touched upon the lunch program with the contracted services, but I wanted to just provide another visual of this program, since this was the last month that we could have some comparative data. The red line represents its 1920 profit and loss, and the blue line represents the current year. And as you can see, In March, we almost broke even with our combined loss at $13,000. And although the lunch program continues to be a concern, we are beginning to see additional sales, especially at the high school, where we actually turned a small profit for the second month in a row. Our participation is increasing, especially at the high school, as we moved 19,456 meals for this month. And although our meal count is still down by approximately 40% when compared to a normal year, and our elementary meal count is down by 25%. And again, we're still anticipating a full year loss of about $320,000. So just to recap, our anticipated year-end projection is currently at a negative $13,128. We have just under $21 million accounted for inactive encumbrances, and the majority of them will be liquidated hopefully before year end. We have just under $3 million worth of expenses captured in anticipated obligations. And the majority of these costs can be found in accounts such as salaries, benefits, and professional services. And these are accounts that don't typically carry encumbrances, and that's why they're listed here. And we anticipated all of these unencumbered accounts to be fully expended by year end, and we will be creating encumbrances for some of them. We also are carrying anticipated obligations and supplies, and we have been working with principals and directors each month in order to present the most relevant and realistic values in this column, and we are making adjustments every month in that area. The other contingency type accounts, such as building repairs and emergency services, repairs has an anticipated spend of just over $100,000, which seems reasonable at this time. For the month of March, we spent approximately $32,000 in general building repairs and $12,000 in emergency repairs. Our current anticipated spend of $100,000 will bring us over budget by approximately $46,000, and that's mainly because the Reed and High School both experienced some heavy emergency repairs this year, bringing both schools over budget by $25,000. And lastly, our COVID-related expenditures for the year remains at just over $2.6 million, as we've made some final adjustments to our technology costs. This number might change a little bit as the school secretaries have been reconciling these accounts before year end, so we can capture all of the COVID expenses. And that does it for the financial summary for March.
All right, I'm gonna take down the,
Let's see. Oh, you got it. Thank you.
and that, so I can see everybody. Are there any questions on the financial report or comments? Yes, Ms. Zukowski?
Just one, curious about the status of the school lunch program and how that relates to the definition of a COVID-related expense or loss. I mean, if it hadn't been for COVID, our students would have been in the schools eating lunches. Is that considered something which is designated a COVID-related expense or loss?
Yeah, I did include that in the COVID document, not even that long ago, because after we started talking about it, it is definitely a COVID-related loss. So I did include that. Yeah, and I'm sorry I don't have the printed document. I didn't include it in the report this time, but I can send that out next month for sure, so you can see where we're at with all the different expenses.
That would be good. Thank you.
In a related note, the school lunch, the lunch program, are there students, sales are going up at the high school? Is that from students who are remaining for sports, or what students are?
Well, yeah, I'm not sure that it's sales so much. It's more the meal counts, and because we're receiving the federal reimbursement for the meals.
Okay.
Yeah, we're seeing more in meal counts now.
And then just a question about the, what was it, the excise tax?
Oh, the excise tax credit, yep.
Passed,
Yeah.
retroactive. How will that be, how will that be incorporated into our financials? Is that?
Well, we actually, because it's from a prior year, we have to turn that over to the town.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, this year for 2020, we may be able to keep some of it because it is a calendar year, so we could probably, apply some of it to our budget if needed for September through November.
Okay. And when will that happen at the end of the year that we turn it over along with?
No, as soon as the checks come in.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Very good. Any other questions or comments? All right. Sensing none, we'll take a vote on the financial report then. All those in favor? Aye. And that's everybody. So I'll just say, is there any opposed? None. So it's unanimous, 5 in favor, none opposed. And that brings us to our presentations, I believe. Let me pull back up my agenda. So yeah, we have our first read on a couple of the curricula, and we have a couple of guests here to help us understand the curriculum that we have. So Mr. Holst Gruby is here, Mr. Steve George, as well as Miss Chelsea Crook to share some. I know that it was a while ago that the Curriculum and Instruction Committee looked at this curriculum. It's been a couple months, so it's good to see you here, and I'll turn it over to you at this point. I guess we'll go through the robotics curriculum first. So Mr. George, did you want to give us a summary? And do you need to share your screen?
Actually, Kim has it. She promised me she was going to do it because I don't really know Zoom as well. I do Google Classroom. So she has the slideshow, Kim.
Okay.
Put that up for me.
I will, absolutely. I will do it for you.
You're the best. Thank you. First, I just wanted to thank you guys for considering this. I think it's going to be a great program if you guys choose to approve it. And I especially want to thank 2 people that were really important in the process. Our assigned curriculum coach was Karen Drager. Karen did an unbelievable job helping myself and Eric go through all the details of how to write the curriculum and making sure things are written correctly in the concept-based curriculum. And the second is Eric Holst-Gruby, who is also on now. He was very essential in putting the ideas together and making this happen. We started this as a club sport or a club within the school, and we realized that there just wasn't enough time in the day or a time in the week to meet with the kids in order to compete with other schools and produce a quality product. So we came up with the idea of making it a course where we can teach so many different skills to the kids and produce high quality products. So we decided to write the applied robotics curriculum. First thing you need to know about this course is we decided we wanted to have groups of students that had taken the course along with and alongside kids that are just taking the course for the first time. So some of the things that you'll notice when you're looking at the slides is if you're a repeat student that is taking it again, then you will really only be doing the last couple of slides I'll show you at the end, and that is competing for the VEX robotics competitions. The VEX kits, which you see in the picture below, are the state-of-the-art systems that we've purchased already, and they have competitions throughout the country, and they design challenges that they change up every year or two, so that the students have to meet the designs challenge and compete against other area schools. So the first unit that we had written, or first unit that we wrote, was a basic skills unit where if you are taking the course for the first time, you have to learn how all the things work. So we call it interconnections of machines. And what that does is how to build the robots, how the different pieces go together, how the motors mount, just basic structural parts of the machine. The activities that we build in those are very basic. It's called a robot racer, which is like basically a dragster. And we lean heavily on the idea of mechanical advantage in there, which is an important concept to understand within robotics in machines. So if you are a first-time person taking this course, this is a really essential part in understanding how the kits work and how robotics works and how machines operate in general. Go to the next slide, please, Kim. Thank you. The second part is also for a first-year person, although many students will always be evolving their understanding of how to control the machines. There's a complex programming language that VEX uses in order to program these robots. And most kids have not learned that yet. So if you're going to take this course for the first time, you definitely need to learn it. If you're taking this course for a second or third time, then it's always something that you can brush up on or improve your skills on. So this is how to control the machines. It's the programming languages. It's how to operate the VEX machines autonomously, and learning how to program sensors. And we have all these computers that you see in the picture there. That's my classroom, where they have the program that's on there, and the students have to learn how to do that. This was a really heavy part that we used during the COVID when the kids were home, because they have a VEX virtual world that they can do this at home on, which was really helpful to my class in the fall when we were home, when the kids were at home, because they can program the virtual world and complete some of the challenges that are on there. So that was a really, really helpful tool. And it's also a helpful tool when the kids are learning how to do that within their machines. So we can go to the next slide, please, Kim. All right, so now we're starting to get into the problem solving aspect of the course, which I think is one of its main benefits. We give them some basic problems to solve, and then there's the VEX problems to solve. So Eric is going to speak on the VEX challenge, because he's the one that went to the VEX challenge when we were doing the robotics club together. Eric ended up taking the group of kids to go to that. And the challenge changes every couple of years. So the students designing the machines in order to meet the challenge is always changing. And that's why we really wanted kids to keep enrolling in this course, because if they take it once, they're going to get the one challenge, but they're not going to be able to VEX challenge, because he's the one that went to the VEX challenge. Eric, do you want to speak about that, since I'm hearing myself?
Yeah, I turned on too soon, sorry. The challenge itself, as you can see by all those students, is a big one. And you can see a lot of matching uniforms, a lot of dedicated trailers, and the competition is stiff. One of the things that we're so thrilled about this year is Steve's done a great job promoting his class through some really high quality interactions between the distance learners and the in-person learners. It was really neat to walk into his class and see the two designing together, which is a skill they're going to need after high school. So, and we would also say that as far as STEM goes, there are things in STEM where if you don't have the competition, you don't get that experience where everything works just fine. And then the day of the competition comes and it doesn't work quite the way you thought it would, and you have to have that panic situation. That is a really high quality learning experience for kids.
So a first year student might be producing a challenge that we designed within the class. I have a robot maze that they have to learn how to traverse. And then a second or third year student would be participating within the VEX challenge. So in the final unit is one that we kind of leave open, which is the evolution of machinery. And that can be any of the different challenges that the robotics competitions will produce for the kids. So as they go through the program again and again, hopefully 2 or 3 times, being able to produce high quality and more challenges, more difficult challenges, they will be able to evolve their machines in order to achieve those challenges. You guys have any questions about the class or the curriculum?
Yes, Ms. Zukowski.
Yeah, I always raise my hand quickly, I guess too quickly, because I'm never sure how long you wait for the questions to start. But if somebody wants to ask first, by all means, go.
You're first.
Okay. So when I first saw this in the curricular, I was watching the curriculum instruction meeting, I was wondering, well, they're taking the same content over and over, and how is that, helping? And then luckily I went home and just at mold, and there's a lot of parallels between orchestra and this course, where what it is really about the overall mastery of a rather complex topic, which is just really quite delightful. Now, speaking, basically, my college, we had a mechanical engineering course. Okay, so now you're talking about the engineering students, and that course was called at the time 270. And it was this plus, they were doing materials and things to that effect, but there was always a competition that they would be then doing. And so I remember at the CNI, you had talked about trying to open it up to a broader population of students. And my question there is, I know in band that there are, there were things where the honor students wouldn't have to pay. But if an honor student took something like architecture back when my daughters were in school, which was the mid-noughts, then they got a quote zero weight course. And a lot of the more competitive kids didn't want that zero weight course on their resume because it would lower their GPA. Is there something, I guess this is for Kim, is there something that is being done at the high school that will let these really exciting courses be something that, kids going for engineering and, going for honors courses or AP courses would not be penalized for taking?
So I don't think they're penalized for taking it. I think what you're referring to is the different weighting that comes along with a college prep versus an honors versus an AP class.
Yeah.
And all electives in the building, regardless of department, are unweighted, and that's because they're non-leveled courses. And part of the way that our students take it is not only because they're interested in it and they potentially want to pursue it and it looks, good on their transcript as they apply to schools and potentially into these programs, but also because they're required to take a certain number in these variety of different departments in our building, predominantly, Eric and Chelsea and Steve here from the beat department, but also in the area of fine arts. And so any in either of those departments, along with PE and health, are all unweighted. And so they all kind of fall into that same category for all students. It's the same with PE and health, all of the music courses, obviously, and then these elective courses as well. One of the benefits, like Steve is mentioning, is that they can take it multiple times. There are, obviously, predominantly in those three departments that I just mentioned, you can take courses repeatedly so that you can build on your content level, but increase your level of expertise as you start to develop as a learner and decide that this may be something you want to pursue in college.
Okay, thank you. So it sounds like a lot has changed from the mid to late noughts, and that's very nice to hear.
I will say in my automotive class, I teach it with different levels of students in there. We have first year students and then kids that have taken that 2 and 3 years. And what I really find is that a lot of the learning takes place when the older students begin to teach the younger students. So if I have a class of 16, 17 kids, it's very hard for me to be with every group of kids, every group that is doing a repair. What's helpful, and you'll see that a lot of the learning will really elevate when the older students that have more experience begin to teach the younger students, and that's, in my opinion, a really good reinforcement activity.
All right, any other questions or comments? Yes, Mr. D'Elia.
First of all, I think this is wonderful. I just have a question about the curriculum. I was trying to understand, and I think Mrs. Zukowski kind of explained it a little bit, but some of the curriculum seems to be content knowledge, and then there's a design phase, right, or design challenge. So for the students that are repeating the class, they're clearly not going to be taking that content knowledge twice. Do they just go right into the engineering design process? And
exactly, they would be competing, they would be designing something for the current VEX challenge. The only relationship they would have to the first 2 units is where I'm sure the younger students would look to them for help building their first and second machines. So if you're taking the course for the first time, a student that has taken it for the second or hopefully third time would be able to help you and show you how some of the things work, which was like that same thing I was talking about in my auto class.
Thank you. May I ask another question?
Sure, of course.
Go ahead.
How do you grade the challenges?
Okay, so for the young, I have a rubric for on the robot racer, for instance, there is a rubric for times. So if you fall within this time, there's a certain distance they have to travel. You fall within this certain time, then your grade is this. If you fall within this certain time, then your grade is this. And they always give them the opportunity to improve it. So if they run their robot and it runs a really bad time, they're always encouraged to try and improve that in order to get to that top level. So that would be one example of one. The maze robot that we do for the younger students is they have to traverse their robot through a maze that's on a carpet with cones basically, and they want to do it without hitting any of the cones. So if they do it without hitting any of the cones, then they would get the top grade. If they're knock over a cone here or there, then it would reduce by a certain amount.
Well, may I continue?
Sure.
Yes.
Sorry. In these contests where they compete against other schools, I've done like Odyssey of the Mind, I've done Invention Convention. I was just curious, aren't they usually not allowed to have any adult help for those contests, or are you allowed to coach them for those VEX competitions? I'm just not familiar with VEX.
Eric, I'm going to let you answer that one. I'm pretty confident that Eric went to it, so he was there as a coach. But Eric, I'm going to let you answer that one since you went to it.
Thank you. Appreciate
Yes, it's totally student-based. And yes, the adults are there for, obviously adult-type things, situations, and advice. But we're basically advisors, and that's really it. And if you'll notice in the pictures that you saw, it's not me, going to the judge's table or whatever it is. It's the kids. I'm 20 feet behind the line, ready to help at any instance, but it's their thing.
Yeah, I guess that's to your point. That's really where they're going to learn, because they got to figure it out on their own. They can't just turn to you and ask you for help. So I think this is wonderful. Thank you, gentlemen, and Dr. Longabuco and everyone else involved in this. I think it's absolutely phenomenal. And I'll stop there.
Maybe we should stop there. That's a great way to stop. But I don't want to cut off anybody if anybody else has questions. All right, so let's end there. That's a good way to end on that curriculum. Thank you, Mr. George, for bringing that to us. And then I think we have Ms. Crook to present the Accounting 1 curriculum. I know you were here with us a couple years ago for the accounting or the finance course that all of our students take. So
yeah, I've actually business foundations, personal finance, and now Accounting 1. So the reason that I'm presenting the Accounting 1 curriculum to you tonight, and I appreciate you all being here and listening to me, is because it was a little dated from when I came to Newtown to teach the accounting curriculum. It was older textbooks, very much chapter, test, workbook, problem-based. So I wanted to try to change it and make it a little bit more fun and captivating for students, because although accounting, when we hear it, sounds like it might be boring, there's value to learning it and to applying it to your own lives as well. So I tried to integrate some fun stuff into it as well. So the first slide, if you want to switch for me, thank you, is just a description of the Accounting 1 course. So pretty much it's financial accounting. I go through, we start with what is an account. We go through debits and credits. We go through the general journal. We go through the ledger. Then we make worksheets. Then they're able to actually make financial statements. So it kind of covers the reporting cycle. It does prepare students to take Accounting 2, which accounting 2 just ran for the first time this semester. It's running for the first time. And after students take accounting 2, they should be able to sit for the CLEP exam, which would allow them to get college credit for financial accounting. So that's a big, nice little perk. And then the next slide. So I decided to organize my slideshow in terms of my units. My units are based off of different sections that kind of I thought fit together well. But unit 1 is all about understanding the accounts and the process of journalizing. Unit 2, the ledgers, cash control systems, and worksheets. And then unit 3, the financial statements and closing the accounts out. And then I just popped in a little unit about exploring the accounting career field, because I always tell my students this, but you know, they're presented with so many courses, and it's like, you know, sometimes they don't take, as you're saying, they don't take the courses like the robotics and other courses where they might find an interest in it. And then they say, oh, well, maybe this is something I want to do. Whereas a lot of my students in personal finance, they don't really know things that they're interested in doing for their careers. So I kind of we do a little unit on looking at different careers within accounting, as well as the pay, the benefits, and then what the education looks like to get to that accounting career. So the next slide, thank you. So I did this in terms of the conceptual based learning, the model that we were designing our curriculum for. The conceptual lens for this unit was system. So I highlighted some of the generalizations that followed through this unit, but the idea here is they're understanding that everything has, or businesses have, accounts that they trace and that they track, and that's what they're able to use in order to better the business and start to maintain order and maintain this idea of a system. We then I introduced the journaling idea, which is that we start to put things into a very organized journal where we can see that the debits equal the credits, and that allows us to adhere to the double entry accounting method. Perfect timing, you got it. These are some of the activities in Unit 1. So I do still follow the book. There are some things that the book has that are definitely beneficial. And so I do that. I do introduce Google Sheets and Excel, so the students have some idea of how to do equations and spreadsheets. And then I did, just to make accounting more fun, I introduced this hotel project, which the students actually establish their own hotel. They pick where to start their hotel, and then I present them with a bunch of daily things that they have to journal, they have to put in the ledger. They then have to assemble a worksheet at the end of the fiscal period, and then they have to put together an income statement and balance sheet, and they have to look at, oh, okay, did we make income? Did we suffer a loss? What could we have done better? So it just gives them more ownership over the concepts that we're learning in the class. So they're not just doing book work, it's actually, they're applying it to something meaningful and unique for them. So Unit 2, ledgers, cash control systems, and worksheets. This is more so, I would say, the balance part of accounting, because accounting is very much, it's right or wrong. We have to make sure that everything is balanced. So as long as we're doing the process correctly, you know, we should maintain that balance, and that's good. So here are some generalizations from this unit. And then we can go to the next slide. So here are some activities that I put into this unit. I also do a lot with NBC's The Profit. Marcus Lemonis he goes in and invests in different businesses, and I have them look at these kind of like a case study almost. We analyze the different things that we noticed in the show. So things like, oh, their balance sheet was off by, you know, hundreds of thousands of dollars. That's a red flag. What could have possibly happened because of this? So that's something that I do. I just noticed that was sticking out in the self-developed activities. I still do, like I said, the workbooks, but then I also keep adding to the hotel project. So again, that's a semester-long thing that they just keep building and building and building on. I do like the Jeopardy review game. I do a lot of Kahoots to try to, again, make it like that competition aspect where, you know, they can see who's top 5. Then we'll go to the next slide. So this is Unit 3, and this is the last unit as far as the accounting procedures go. So this is the financial statements and closing accounts. So the conceptual lens here is the structure and function. So these statements are structured and they do provide a certain function for the business, and that is at what the business can maybe improve upon, what the business maybe did well with. They can compare it to other businesses. They can look at previous periods, previous quarters. And so we do a little bit of percentages. They use the component percentage to look at, how much of my sales was, represented by the expenses, that sort of thing. So they do a little bit of analytical work on that. And then they finally close out the accounts and get them ready for the next fiscal period. And then they assemble a post-closing trial balance. And then the next slide. So here are some of the activities that I do in Unit 3. One of the bigger ones that's sticking out to me that I wanted to highlight was I do use Yahoo Finance. So they get to go into Yahoo Finance. They get to see and use Yahoo Finance to see how a company is doing. I show them where they can find the company's income statement and balance sheet. And they actually look at different companies that are publicly traded. They can go in and do some of the percentages that we learned on these companies. So they get to compare their companies that they chose and see whose company did the best. I also do a little accounting detective activity where we use scan codes, and they can scan the codes to find out clues, and they, using their knowledge from the whole semester, piece together this puzzle at the end. I do an X-ball review game, so they get to make a basket for each correct answer. And then they also add to their hotel project. And at the end, they create a presentation about their hotel. And I've had a lot of success with that. And it's definitely a good thing for them. They feel accomplished when they see that final product, because it's been a semester-long project. They feel very accomplished when they're done with it. And then Unit 4, like I said, is the accounting career field. So this is the conceptual lens I chose for this was society. So they're looking at what accountants do in society. We talk about CPAs. We talk about some of the guidelines and the principles that accountants have to follow, some of the laws, and then what could happen if they don't follow those laws. So we look into some of the white collar crimes, some of the historical white collar crimes that have occurred, and they get into that as well. And then, yep, so my final exam is Monopoly. So they get to play Monopoly and record all of their transactions from the game, and then assemble a balance sheet and an income statement. I do a little accounting career pathways web quest, or accounting careers pathways activity, and then to follow that a web quest, so they get to see different careers within accounting. So a lot of people come in and think it's just taxes, and although that is a huge, we always assume accountants are related to taxes, there are different accountants out there, so I make that aware to them as well. And I believe that is it. Okay, yeah, so to summarize, the course covers financial accounting. It's largely bookkeeping and reporting. It exposes students to different career fields or different careers that they potentially could explore. And it's designed to help students get prepared and I should say, feel more confident taking business courses maybe in college. All right, any questions?
Do we have any? Yes, Ms. Ladline.
Hi, so I just wondered, I love this course. I think it's awesome, and it exposes them to such a great career path. Can they do my taxes first of all, is my first question. My second question, just kidding. My husband would be mad about that. My second question is, I'm just wondering if they have any connection to any local businesses or any local accounting firms. And like, for instance, could they look at like what the food service group does or something like that, just to kind of involve them in local businesses and give them a flair for what the actual on the job deal is like. Just curious. I know this is not the greatest climate to do that in with regard to COVID, but even doing it virtually. I just didn't know.
Yeah, so prior to COVID, we actually were awarded a grant where I could go out into the career fields. So I went out into the accounting field and I met with different people. And I actually had one tax accountant that was willing to come in and talk to the students in the class. But that was 2019. So it was right before. And I would love that. I think that would definitely put the practices and the concepts in perspective for the students, because they would get to see it in the real world. So I definitely think that would be something I would love to do and bring into the course.
Great. I think you have a lot of fun activities for them to take part in that really exposes them to what the idea is all about. So thank you.
Oh, thank you.
Mr. D'Elia?
Yeah, I wanted to piggyback on what Mrs. Lideline said. I would be, and I'm sure I can convince my fellow board members to help support possibly even a field trip to maybe a big accounting firm. And if something like that would ever to come up, I'm sure I could be twist some arms. So if you ever have something like that presents itself and the climate is right, I think that would be another, along those same lines of meeting professionals. I think that would be wonderful to expose the students to that environment, because accounting is such a broad field. I was an accountant before I was a science teacher, and accounting is such a broad field, and it leads to so many different directions and so many different career paths. It's actually one of the it's like a backbone of business, and it can lead to anywhere. And I think if the more we expose the students to what the real world has to offer in this field, you might really spark some interest for the students. So thank you for this. And I just wanted to add my 2 cents.
Thank you. Yeah, I would definitely entertain the idea of going on a field trip to see accounting in the real world, because I talk about it, I show them videos, and I, my background was in business, but if you understand accounting, you understand business. That's what I always tell them, because it really is the backbone of business.
You can bring them on a field trip to the municipal center and look at how municipal and Board of Ed finances are. But I know that's not quite as exciting as going to a big finance firm.
I was just thinking that looking at Tanya. So.
All right, Ms. Harriman Stites.
Yeah, you beat me to the punch. I was totally going to volunteer Tanya as well. But no, I just wanted to commend you. I mean, to take something that you saw as being just sort of, a workbook and not really dynamic, and taking it to where it is. I really appreciate that you took the initiative to do that for our students. And accounting definitely is not in my wheelhouse, but I think had I had the opportunity and been smart enough to take a class like that in high school, it definitely would have helped me out. So I appreciate that we have those kinds of courses for our students, and I'm definitely going to try to convince my son to take it. So thank you so much for what you're doing. I think it's a wonderful course.
Thank you. Yeah, tell him to sign up for it.
I think I'm sorry. Go ahead, Tanya. Go ahead.
No, I'm sorry. I wanted to just mention that we used to have a summer program where the kids would come up to central office and learn some basic bookkeeping and office type work and those types of functions. So if that were to ever come back, I don't know if we'll have it this summer or not, but certainly, we could let them know about it.
That's on the record, everybody. That's on the record.
I think it's important to know Eric, Chelsea, and Steve all teach singleton classes where they are the only teacher. And the reality of that is the numbers of kids enrolled speak to the teacher. It speaks to the content, and it speaks to the delivery by the teacher. And the fact that Chelsea was able to run an accounting 2 class, which hasn't run in years, is because she put this new innovative spin into accounting so that kids would want to learn. And it's the same with Steve in robotics and Eric with his architect design classes. And we see it year after year in the BEAT department that numbers are growing. And I do think it's a kudos to Eric and to the members of his department who are kind of shifting things as we continue to evolve in education to make sure that it's up to date and current for our students.
Mr. D'Elia.
I do have a question. I apologize for being late with this one, but how, I know technology plays a huge role in accounting, and it is kind of a slippery slope because now you can just enter an entry and it does it for you. But I'm wondering, beyond Excel and Sheets, is there any, do you introduce the students, or is there something that you can use to introduce technology beyond Excel and Sheets?
Yeah, so what I want to do is use QuickBooks for the hotel project. I need to master QuickBooks myself before I can teach it to them. So what I want to do is kind of do a dry run with my own project. So I'll put it in QuickBooks. I'll make sure it works before I go there with them. But absolutely, QuickBooks is a huge tool that I think would be really valuable to. That's my next kind of hurdle to get through. The spreadsheets is a big one. Business, they should know how to use spreadsheets. They should know how to do the functions in spreadsheets, but QuickBooks will be my next.
Yeah, my daughter's at UConn. There's an entire course on spreadsheets, so it's wonderful that you're introducing that. And I think QuickBooks will be wonderful because they have the ledger. You can just use the ledger, and you'll still be teaching them how to ledger and all that good stuff. So, thank you.
Yes, Tanya.
Just one more thing. We do have QuickBooks at the high school. If you're ever interested, I'm going to volunteer Jennifer Arnold. We do have it in the continuing ed program. So maybe she could give you a, dry run or something if you want to check it out.
There we go. That's fantastic. I want to echo Kim's sentiment that, the BEAT program, you continually bring us fantastic curriculum and improve all the time. And I know, Chelsea, I had forgotten, this is the third time that you've been here since I've been on the board. I mean, that's amazing. And I just appreciate all the updating and innovative thinking that you bring to the curriculum. Chelsea, Eric, and Steve, I think, it's been really nice to see all this good curriculum coming through. So thank you. And I'll leave it at that unless somebody wants to add. So what we'll do is, given that wonderful review, we'll wait until our next meeting to approve them. We have a first review and then a second review, and that'll occur at our next meeting. And so we'll take action on the curriculum at the next meeting and let you know what happens. But thank you for sticking with us tonight and sharing the curriculum with us. All right, so that'll bring us to our fine arts and music update on programs. I know that Michelle Hiskovich was intending on being with us this evening, but is not able to make it. But Dr. Rodriguez, did you want to speak to this item?
Well, actually, I think Anne is going to speak to this in it because Michelle did present at the CNI.
Okay.
I know that one thing Michelle was going to talk about was just, again, a recognition of the Newtown High School band out of Johanna Hayes's office, who was selected one of 5 bands. And I think I put this in one of my Sunday highlights to you, selected to play in the Memorial Day parade in Washington, D.C. next spring. So very exciting. And again, a kudos to Kurt Eckert, our band director, who will be retiring this year. But again, he was thrilled when he heard that news. And I know Michelle was going to say that publicly and recognize the Newtown High School band. And I'll turn it over to Anne to talk about the pathways with the instruments that I know she presented at a CNI meeting.
Hi, everyone. So I'm sure I won't do justice to the way that Michelle would have been for her presentation, but one of the things, even 2 years ago when I was at Reed, that we had a lot of discussions about was the concern of not only attracting students to play band instruments, but retaining them from the time they start at Reed until they reach the high school band. In addition to retaining them, there was a concern about having a balanced band at the high school, which is something that is important for them to be successful. So on March 23rd, Michelle came to present to CNI with Phil Byerly and Bob Nolte. They are the band instructors at Reed Intermediate School. And again, this was something they've been looking at for probably 2 years, which was revisiting our first year band pathways with the idea to develop our aspiring musicians, but also to make sure that our band program grows and continues to thrive. So one of the things that they were looking at was that oftentimes when students come into Reed, they, despite all of the guidance that's given, and there are a number of opportunities that they have to be educated on instrument choice. The fourth grade music teachers show them videos that are created at Reed on selecting an instrument. They do a petting zoo where they come with their parents. In spite of all that, oftentimes they find that students select an instrument that is unlikely for them to be successful at. And there's a lot of reasons for this. Sometimes they just play the instrument that happens to be in the house that another member of their family played, or they choose an instrument that they think is cool, but it's way too big for them and they can't put their fingers on it. Sometimes the instrument itself is bigger than they are. And in addition, they often will choose specialized instruments, and they do get lessons at Reed. And because if it is a specialized instrument, they will then be grouped with instruments of another type. They often don't get the kind of instruction that they need because they're with completely different instruments. So they surveyed districts around the state and they got some response. And they also looked around the country to see what other music programs did. And what they decided to do was to provide more of a controlled choice for the students coming into fifth grade for a selection of beginner instruments, if you will. So not that they want to limit anybody's choice. And I know the question was asked at CNI, if a student has been taking lessons already on an instrument, we're not going to deny them the opportunity to play that instrument because we're not looking to stifle anyone's success. What we're looking to do is grow the success of all students, and particularly those students who, through the experience of the music teachers, they already know that there might be not the greatest likelihood of the student being able to even produce a sound. And if they can't produce sounds, they become very frustrated and they're not successful and they're more likely to give up the instrument. So they are going to limit the lesson groups with the idea that kids will have success with these instruments and that the reduction of frustration, the increase in their success will ultimately help grow the band numbers. They did present a slide. I don't have the presentation, or I would share it with you because that when they started talking about it, creating a different pathway, I asked them to look at the math pathways that we've created for the district and try to model it after that. And they have done that. So there's a smaller selection of instruments for incoming fifth graders. And then you can see it branches out because it's not that we don't want a student to ever play the French horn or the tuba or the sax. We just want them to start off with more simpler instruments so that they can master those baseline skills, if you will, before they move on to more challenging instruments. And hopefully that will help our numbers grow, which is something that they're obviously very vested in. So that was kind of the gist of their presentation. I know, Deb, you were present and you have some experience with the music department. So if I left anything out, feel free to jump in and add to my summary. And if anybody has any questions, I'd be happy to try to answer them anyway.
Do we have any questions or comments? No, I appreciate it. You know, I was there for the CNI presentation and I appreciated that comparison to the math pathways. It did help it, you know, put it into context for me. So thank you for sharing that with us. And I think we'll move on to our old business, which includes the COVID-19 update from Dr. Rodriguez.
So actually, Jillian, our student, beat me to the punch earlier, talking about the vaccines, but I wanted to just again, thank everyone who was responsible for that. We were able to secure, as you know, 2 dates for vaccine clinics for our 16 and older population of students. And again, thanks to our partnership with Community Health in Danbury. This is important because we want to be able to hold as many end of the year events as you know, as safely as possible, especially as we get closer to graduation. And again, so I want to really publicly thank Ann Dalton and Donna Colbert for making this happen. And we were also able to get the communication out. We were on break, but thanks to Dr. Longabuco, even during her break, was able to get the message out to students and to our families so that they were aware. Again, knowing that many of our students, I know Jillian spoke to even the students who were coming in very proud that they were vaccinated, was even prior to offering those dates. So the more students vaccinated, the better. I know we were also looking at discussing possible testing as we get closer to some of the end of the year activities. So there'll be more details on that. But again, this is going to really give everyone, I think, a peace of mind as we get closer to those events. So again, thank you, Dr. Longabuco. I know we were all on vacation, but we were able to manage to get that out. So I appreciate it.
Or I can tell you, there was 147 students who went this past Saturday to Danbury
Great.
Fair Mall, and that's the first of 2 Saturdays, and that's after all the students who got them between April 1st and 17th when we held our first clinic. So we're making a good clip at our 16 and up population.
Great. So that's all I have, at least on the COVID.
All right. Ms. Herman Stites.
Yeah, have you seen, I know that there's been some concern about traveling during spring break and folks not properly quarantining per the CDC guidelines at least. Have you seen an uptick in students that have moved to cohort D in order to quarantine, or to students who have moved to cohort D in fear of the return of the folks who are spring breaking elsewhere?
So Lori, do you want me to speak to that just based on the high school numbers?
Yeah, I think that would be, yes.
Sure. So we have not seen an increase to cohort D. So just for the high school, we don't switch to cohort D unless it's 2 or more weeks prior to, less than 2 weeks, we use our temporary remote form. And I will tell you that we did see a significant increase in temporary remote learners for this week. And it's for both of those reasons. I would say probably about 50-50. Those who traveled and were quarantining and those who were concerned about others who were traveling and returning. So we had, as of yesterday morning, we had about 200 students on that temporary remote list, most of whom requested the 5 days this week and then to return on Monday. But we prepped our staff to kind of expect that, and our numbers are a little lower in the building this week, with which we're kind of fine with. But the form is working out great, actually, and we're able to filter through it quickly and get the attendance in and make sure that students are able to join remotely for their classes. So we anticipate it going back to normal or closer to the normal percentages, which was about 85% in by Monday.
And I can tell you that the whole district was prepared for this too as well, Rebecca. And I will get the numbers for the middle school. I think there was an uptick there as well. But everybody was being flexible in terms of the teachers, knowing this would, they're doing the right thing, I think, in many instances.
Any other questions or comments? I know I'm super happy about the fact that you got our students into the Danbury clinic, is that what we're calling it? The vaccination clinic. That when I realized that prom and graduation were a week apart, I all of a sudden panicked, and I thought, so that was fantastic. I'm super happy about that. Kudos to everybody who worked on getting that to happen. All right, any other questions or comments? No, okay. So we will move on to new business, that being the discussion and possible action on the non-renewal list, and I will entertain a motion for that.
Move that the Board of Education approve the 2021-22 non-renewal list as presented.
Second.
Okay, so Mr. D'Elia makes the motion and Ms. Harriman Stites seconds the motion. Is there any, Dr. Rodriguez, do you want to?
Yeah, just very briefly, you have the list that you were sent. As you know, each year we prepare this non-renewal list, and those staff who were under 1 year only contracts, as well as any reductions or adjustments that are made to staffing through the budget process, or even those that might be impacted as we look at staffing adjustments and bumping that occurs with tenured teachers. So again, this is strictly protocol, but I just wanted to point out that this does not consider many of the hiring opportunities and movements that may occur due to moves in staffing. There are open positions. Hiring will be taking place very shortly throughout the district. And there will definitely be changes in open opportunities, at least for the those three. You'll see 2 from the middle school and 1 at the high school. And again, we did have conversations with anyone who may be impacted as a result of our changes in staffing or adjustments in staffing due to budget. The second part of that list is very common. Again, those are all 1 year only contracts and long-term subs. So it's pretty straightforward, but I just wanted you to know that again, this may change, of course, and there could be those that are on the list that do find an opportunity here.
Okay. Are there any questions or comments? All right, so sensing none, we can vote on that, and I will. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? None. So that passes unanimously. And then that brings us to our discussion of final days on the school calendar. So again, Dr. Rodriguez, I will turn it over to you.
So in the past, we've scheduled early release days for typically the last several days of school. This year, it is Friday the 11th, Monday, June 14th, and Tuesday, June 15th. And as you know, we've had to wait as the year progressed because of snow days. We didn't typically know when the last day of school was until at least after April 1st. This year was far more predictable because we did use the virtual days as well. We do have a high school graduation on that Friday and then that Saturday as well. And a rain date for the middle school graduation is that following Monday, as you know. So we're just here to share those dates with you, and we'd like to communicate with families that the last 3 days of school will be early release.
All right. Any questions or comments from board members? All right, I see none. So we will move on to public participation. And I'll take that as, you know, board members not having any objections to those last 3 days. And the communication should probably go out so that families can plan.
Okay.
So we'll move on to public participation, and I don't see any. Oh, I do see a couple. Okay, so I will open up to public participation. If anybody would like to address the board at this time, you can unmute using *6. And I'll wait a minute for, all right, not a full minute, but a good 10 seconds. All right, I'm sensing no public participation, so we'll close out public participation and I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All right, Mr. D'Elia, seconded by Ms. Harriman Stites, and all those in favor, aye.
Good night, everybody.
Good night.
Good night.
Thank you.
Night.